It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of September 22nd, 1995. And we got 6 movies, and most of them are pretty notable films. They range from really good to really bad to some interesting films of the people involved in them, cult classics. We've got a good assortment this week, so let's jump on into it. We'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is David Fincher's Seven, starring Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman.
You like what you do for a living? These things you see.
You have to wear blinders sometimes. Most times.
Detective William Somerset is looking for a way out.
You're retiring. 6 more days and you're all the way gone.
So how long have you lived here?
Too long. Detective David Mills is looking for a way in.
We'll be spending every waking hour together from now till the time I leave. I'll show you who your friends and enemies are.
Look, I worked homicide 5 years.
Not here.
Now,
You see, Jim, Hammer sells arms.
they're caught in a game
No fingerprints and no witnesses of any kind.
About the only thing we know about that guy right now is he's totally insane.
where the price of sin is death.
There are 7 deadly sins. Gluttony,
You want to come take a look at this?
greed,
No one touches anything.
sloth, wrath, pride, lust, and envy. 7. You can expect 5 more of these.
Body was found on Tuesday morning.
I hate this city.
We're gonna get who did this. This will be the very definition of strict justice. There are 2 more bodies, 2 more victims.
This guy's methodical, exacting, and worst of all, patient.
He's laughing at us.
He had a gun.
He's 2 murders away from completing his masterpiece.
Let's finish it.
Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, Gwyneth Paltrow.
Have you ever seen anything like this? No.
7.
So Seven was David Fincher's follow-up to Alien 3, which of course was not the big hit that everybody thought it was going to be, considering what had previously followed from the Alien films. But this was a chance for David Fincher to really show his abilities as a filmmaker. And for this scriptwriter, Andrew Kevin Walker, this is actually a script that he wrote back in the late 1980s during a period of rising crime and drug addiction in New York City. He actually sent this out to a company in Italy before it eventually got bought over to New Line Cinema. The executives at New Line didn't want to do the script the way it was, with the bleak ending that it had, and wanted a more mainstream, upbeat outcome to it. And so what actually happened was he actually sent this out to David Fincher, and he accidentally sent the original script. And David Fincher agreed to do that movie as long as that ending remained. So that's how that ending kind of stayed in there. And the script continued the efforts to change the ending, but faced opposition from David Fincher and the cast and crew. But all in all, and eventually he ended with the more serious ending, staying put in the movie. And it was interesting because this movie did not do well with test audiences. It actually got some middling reviews from them, and was not expected to perform well due to the violent and mature content of the film. But it went on to become one of the biggest hits of the year, one of the biggest surprise successes, grossing like over $327 million worldwide. And not only did it show that David Fincher could be a really damn good director, but it also was the introduction to Brad Pitt. Like, everyone thought Brad Pitt was... His career was slowly but surely rising, but this was the film that transitioned him from roles based on his appearance to more serious dramatic roles, and it eventually turned Brad Pitt into the Brad Pitt that we all know and love, and David Fincher into the director that we all know and love. And, you know, Morgan Freeman's going to be Morgan Freeman, so that's always going to be a good thing. But, I mean, really, what more do I need to say about Seven, man? This is a movie that's just so damn good. Like, this is one of the best thrillers ever made. And because it is so bleak, and it has this very sour note, this dark note that it takes at the end of it, it just makes it stand out even more. It's a film that's just so unique for its time period. The twist ending of this movie is so good. It's one of the best ones you'll ever see. Just and you got a phenomenal cast overall. Pitt, Freeman, Paltrow, John C. McGinley. You see Arlie Ermy in here, Kevin Spacey in here as well. I mean, like I said before, this was the movie that introduced the world to David Fincher as a filmmaker. This is the film that proved that he knows what he's doing, and he knows how to make some great, really damn good movies. And this is definitely a pure example of that. This is a film that is so well made on so many fronts. It keeps you on the edge of your seat, and it's not afraid to avoid being that mainstream film that the studio originally wanted. And it showed that, hey, you can make a blockbuster hit even with a dark ending that this movie has. Like, I mean, what do I need to say more about that ending? If you haven't seen it, I'm not even going to spoil it for you, but you really need to have seen this movie by now. But, I mean, again, what more do I even need to say about it? This is a very damn good movie. This is a pretty damn good movie. Seven is just so good. It's just a classic film that has held up very well over time. One of the best thrillers ever made, one of the best mysteries ever made. If you haven't seen it already, you're doing yourself a huge damn disservice. Go and see this movie. You will not be disappointed by it. So with that said, let's move on to the next movie that we have here, and that is the infamous Showgirls.
So what are you going to Vegas for? You gonna win?
I'm gonna dance.
There's a spot open in the chorus line. I think you should try out.
I got an audition.
Okay, ladies, I got one interest here, and that's the show. I don't care whether you live or die. I want to see you dance, and I want to see you smile.
From the creators of Basic Instinct, the last time they took you to the edge. This time, they're taking you all the way.
We take the cash, we cash the check, we show them what they want to see.
It's not about fair, it's about power.
You're a stripper, don't you get it?
I'm a dancer.
She's dazzling, she's exciting, and she's what Las Vegas is all about.
Showgirls. Leave your inhibitions at the door.
So yeah, this was the movie that almost killed the NC-17 rating. And basically kind of did. It was the last wide NC-17 release that ever came out, mostly because of how bad it performed at the box office. But then again, you kind of had to expect that, and that was part of the gimmick of selling the film. At the time, it was on a big budget. $45 million doesn't sound like a huge amount of money, especially considering some of the movies that have come out since then. A lot of them, even like, not just talking about blockbusters, but just movies in general. I mean, go look at what Nancy Meyer's new film was going to cost to make it Netflix. $150 million for a romantic comedy. I mean, $45 million back in 1995 was seen as pretty significant money, no matter what. But you also had the controversy and hype surrounding the film's amount of sex and nudity preceding its theatrical release. And it's the only NC-17 film to ever get a wide release, and you can probably see why it would never do that, because they actually, in fact, MGM was so concerned in this movie, they actually hired several hundred staffers to theaters all over the country to make sure that people were not sneaking into this film, like kids under the age of 17, make sure the film goers were over 17, and you know, who wants to go to a movie where you're a studio that has to hire people to make sure that people are a specific age to see the film? It's just like, isn't that the job of the theaters to do that? I mean, it also doesn't help that the movie was poorly reviewed, and it ended up being a box office bomb. I mean, it literally killed Elizabeth Berkley's career for a number of years. In fact, people didn't even want to hire her, and I think her agents actually dropped her when that movie came out. But hey, it did find success at some point on home video. It found success on the video market. It made over $100 million just for video rentals alone. It became one of MGM's highest-selling movies of all time. There was actually 2 different cuts of this movie put out for video, an R-rated cut and an NC-17 cut. And it's gone on to become one of those so-bad-it's-good type of movies. And really, that's probably the best way to describe this movie. It's the very definition of a so-bad-it's-good guilty pleasure movie. It is such a mess of a movie on so many levels, but the movie has the feeling that they really are trying to do something or say something, but it just is failing on so many levels, and you can't help but have such a good time with it. I mean that in the best possible way. This is a movie that is so ridiculously stupid, and just really is just straight up all about the TNA. Like, this is the type of film that you would see kind of it's almost on the level of a softcore Skinamax movie on Cinemax or Showtime. Back when they used to have it, which was about 10 years ago at this point. Like 10 years ago, seriously, if you watched Cinemax or Showtime 10 years ago, you would have seen more adult movies after midnight on there. But nowadays, it's not that like that anymore. Yeah, it's really one of the most bizarre movies ever made. It's a film that pretty much killed a number of careers for at least for a little bit. Like I said, Elizabeth Berkley did eventually kind of come back at some point, but like I said, it went on to become a sizable hit later on in life. This movie probably just didn't work because of the fact that they really thought that this was going to be a big hit and go wide all over the place, and that was I think that was the wrong approach for this. Maybe if you had done it something like I completely forgot what I was thinking of. The Rocky Horror Picture Show. Like, if you had it be like one of those midnight type of movies. I think the Rocky Horror Picture Show still plays at midnight screenings even to this day, and that movie's almost 50 years old. I think if you had done it that way, this movie probably would have found an audience just for the fact that it is so bad it's good in a way. But like I said, it did find an audience later on in life. I think the biggest mistake was that they put it in theaters in a wide audience. Like, they thought that people were going to see this movie and just sell it on the fact that you have it's about Las Vegas strippers and they're going to go NC-17 with it. And even the nude scenes and the sex scenes aren't really all that engaging or exciting whatsoever. But like I said, it feels like you're watching a Skinamax movie when you really think about it. I mean, bottom line, the movie is just a complete mess, but a fun kind of mess. This is the very definition of a guilty pleasure movie. It is so bad on almost every single level, but you can't take your eyes off of it because of just how serious they play it up, how ridiculously silly straight they play this, and it's just like, you can't help but have a good time with it. It's a movie that is really terrible, but at the same time, you gotta admire it for going all the way with it, and that's really all you gotta say about it. If you go into it knowing it's a so bad it's good type of movie, you're gonna have a good time with it. I know I certainly did, but I would never ever say that this is a great movie for what they were trying to do initially. This is a so bad it's good movie. If you like those type of movies, you're going to love the hell out of this movie, Showgirls. So, with that said, let's get to a cult film that actually has a noble fan base that was at the time, and it was a critically praised movie at the time, and that was Empire Records.
Just let me introduce you to everybody. This is Gina, Corey, Lucas, AJ. The staff of Empire Records had the coolest jobs on earth.
Do you think the story is already written, or do you think a bold and courageous act can change the course of history?
Something happened to me last night in Atlantic City. Did you win anything? No, I did not.
But Lucas blew it. Everyone knew it.
You were by Empire?
Well, that's a good thing, right? The money's gone.
Where's it going to?
I think it's recirculating.
We're turning this into a music town?
I have to pay for what Mr. Brilliant here did. I'm the idiot. You're the screw-up, and we are all losers. Now, 5 friends have one day to decide what to do with the rest of their lives. AJ loves Corey, not the whole story.
Today is the day that I'm gonna tell Corey how I feel about her. That I,
love her.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's possible for someone to be in love with someone else and not even know it?
In this life, there are nothing but possibilities.
That is so sweet. I think I'm gonna barf.
Corey wants Rex, first time at sex.
Hey, Rex, what happened to your hair?
I will offer myself to Rex Manning. I wish I could be brave. You are brave. I have to bring Rex's lunch. I'm bringing Rex's lunch!
Mark's raging mad. Best day he's had.
John Lecter!
Help me, help me, help me. If I was in a band, they would not be doing this to me.
Deb shaved her head and made out she was dead.
I tried to kill myself with a Lady Bic.
Just your typical nutty teenager.
You did have hair, right?
I was tired of being invisible.
Gina did it again, this time to a friend.
You get smarter the shorter your skirt gets. I want to sing in a band, but I don't have the guts. So this is how your life's gonna be now? You're just gonna screw every husband? I'm starting! Get this funny feeling deep inside.
Want to know more? Check out the store.
Empire Records open till midnight. This is Mark. Midnight.
Empire Records, featuring the music of Better Than Ezra, Gin Blossoms, Ape Hangers, Evan Dando, Toad the Wet Sprocket, and the Cranberries.
What is wrong with you people?
Rock and roll.
critically praised may have been a little bit of an understatement, because I see that the reviews for this were not very good when they came out. And yeah, that trailer looked absolutely awful. I mean, if I saw that movie back in 1995, that trailer at least, I would have never wanted to go see that movie. I was just like, are you kidding me? That looks awful. It's just like, I don't know what they were thinking with that trailer, but I will say that this movie actually is pretty good. It actually is a lot better than that trailer is making it out to be, and you do get to see a lot of early stars in their launch their early careers with this film, including Rory Cochrane, Robin Tooney, Renee Zellweger, Liv Tyler, Ethan Embry. You also have Anthony LaPaglia, Maxwell Caulfield, Debbie Mazar. Some notable names in here overall, and yeah, it was a massive bomb at the box office when it came out, and but it did eventually go on to have a successful cult following, and it does deserve it, because there is a lot about this movie that you really do admire about it. Like, you do eventually get invested in these characters much better in the movie than the trailer actually tried to sell it to you. Like, in the trailer, they just make everybody look obnoxious. Like, everybody looks obnoxious, fast talking, and I don't know what they were thinking when they sold that trailer, but like I said, it was a movie that eventually found its following over the years, and it's a very solid film. It's just, it kind of reminds me of the music store equivalent to Clerks in a way. You got a good soundtrack selling it as well. It's a really enjoyable film. It's a film that is so much better than that trailer lets on. That trailer really did a bad job of selling this movie to people, but luckily the film did eventually find a following over the years, and I'm glad it did, because it is an enjoyable film. It's not one of the classic films from back in the day, but it is a movie that definitely deserves a lot more praise for it than than trailers gave it, because, yeah, that trailer was not a good trailer whatsoever, but this is actually a very good film. If you haven't seen Empire Records, I'd say definitely check it out. You might actually get some good enjoyment out of it, so. With that said, let's move on to the next movie, and that is A Month by the Lake.
They all met in a beautiful paradise.
Holiday!
What was once a quiet vacation became a maze of flirtation.
English girls and Italian men are cold.
I'm an English woman, there's a difference. Whoa!
I'm Italian.
Now, the Italian wants Miss Bentley.
He's a boy.
It's what thousands of women would give their eye teeth for.
Miss Bentley wants the Major.
You and I have wild, unconquerable desires.
The Major wants Miss Beaumont.
You said we should get to know each other properly.
Did I say that?
And Miss Beaumont just wants to have fun. It all takes place in A Month by the Lake. Check in for a romantic holiday. And check out the movie critics are calling funny.
You're very strong.
Sexy.
I think she was trying to get me interested in you.
Did she succeed?
Wouldn't you like to know?
Siskel and Ebert give it 2 thumbs up. Pulp Fiction's Uma Thurman.
If you're going to kiss me, then kiss me.
Academy Award winner Vanessa Redgrave.
You hot ticket, you.
And Edward Fox star in the liveliest, most hilarious, most romantic time you have ever spent on a lake. A Month by the Lake.
1937, 2 years before World War II, a spinster named Miss Bentley has returned to Lake Como to spend a month's summer holiday to heal herself from the grief of her father's recent death. While there, she meets a bachelor named Major Wilsall and develops some feelings for her. However, a young American girl named Miss Beaumont arrives and flirts with the Major out of sheer boredom, leading her to believe she's actually interested in him. I know nothing else about this movie because I haven't seen it. I can't really say too much about it, but that's really all I know about it. It's a film that it's got Uma Thurman in it, and it's got Vanessa Redgrave in it, so I wouldn't deny that it's a bad film. It could be a good film too, but yeah, I really don't know anything about it, so I can't really say too much about it except that it came out this weekend, and that's it. That's all I got for you on that one. So that's A Month by the Lake. So let's move on to another movie, and that is John Candy starring in Michael Moore's only scripted film he ever did, and that is Canadian Bacon.
I have the results from the overnight tracking.
You know, it's not fair. I mean, every other president had all of the Russians to blame for everything. What have I got?
For an unpopular president.
The voters felt that your being alive or dead had no real bearing on their daily lives.
It's time to give war a chance. Dead.
What are we gonna do for an enemy now?
A riot between Americans and Canadians broke out last night.
Now, with a little inspiration.
All I said was Canadian beer sucks. Give me 1 week and I'll have Americans burning maple leaves.
They'll create a cause worth fighting for.
Is Canadian Prime Minister Clark MacDonald a member of a satanic cult?
Oh, that is stunning.
Canadians are always dreaming of a lot of ways to ruin our lives. The metric system, for the love of God.
Do not panic. I'm in complete control. There's a time to think. There's a time to act. And this, gentlemen, there's no time to think. Move out!
Welcome to Canada.
I'm your worst nightmare.
I don't know what you're talking about.
We got ways of making you pronounce the letter O.
What we have here is a brave but misguided group of Americans who've gone right into Canada and kicked some serious Canadian butt.
Oh, Americans! Welcome to Ontario. Sportsman's paradise. Isn't it, though?
John Candy.
You Canadians are so sneaky.
Alan Alda.
Surrender pronto, or we'll level Toronto.
Rhea Perlman.
What does this look like to you?
Never saw a white one that size.
Kevin Pollak.
When have you ever heard anyone say, honey, let's stay in and order some Canadian food?
Rip Torn.
I can't kill America's neighbors.
I can. Canadian Bacon. From the director of Roger and Me.
All right, now how did you know that was a nuclear facility?
Well, they tricked us on that one. That's a hospital. But it's a hell of a strike.
So, like I said, this is actually the only scripted film that Michael Moore ever did. And you can kind of see why, because that is not a very good trailer for a not-so-very-good movie. And this is actually John Candy's last film he ever did. This was actually shot before he did Wagons East. And you see the cast in there, Alan Alda, Bill Nunn, Kevin J. O'Connor, Rhea Perlman, Kevin Pollak, Rip Torn. You have Dan Aykroyd in the cameo there. There are good ideas to it, but really, this was done a whole lot better in Wag the Dog, which came out 2 years later, which is pretty much the same concept. I mean, the president has to create a fake war and essentially has to hire these people to make that fake war a reality, and that was a much better film. This, I feel like this was a point in time when Michael Moore was trying to get into more comedy in a way, because he had a show on at the time called TV Nation, which was like the satirical news magazine. It was kind of I guess it was trying to be like an equivalent. It's a comedic equivalent to something like Daytime NBC or 60 Minutes in a way. But yeah, you could see why that didn't work out so well. I mean, the jokes in here are not really all that funny, and most of it is just Canadian jokes. It's just kind of like, how many Canadian jokes can you really do in one movie without it getting really annoying really fast? And these get annoying really, really fast. Like, the jokes in here just aren't funny. It's just like, it's a disappointment on so many levels, because, you know, Michael Moore probably could make a scripted movie work out pretty well. Like, I don't doubt him for ever trying to think that this wasn't a bad idea. I think that he wanted to try something here, but it just didn't work out in the end. It just was a movie that was just like, I could see where you're going with it, but the comedy just isn't working very well. And like I said, it was done a whole lot better when Wag the Dog came out 2 years later, which was a much more funnier, much more clever comedy about this type of a story. And it just wasn't there in this movie. It was a movie that really was a major letdown on so many levels. And I guess for John Candy, he wasn't the worst thing about it. I mean, he did try his best. He actually is kind of funny in here, but he's not really given a ton to do, really. Yeah, that's really all I got for you on this one. This one was not very good, so that's Canadian Bacon. Let's move on to the last movie that we have here, and that is Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, or as this trailer says it, The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
August 18th, 1973. Reports of a bizarre chainsaw-wielding family began to filter out of central Texas. Then silence. For 20 long years, nothing further was heard. 1995. Prom night isn't turning out the way you expected. You find yourself on the wrong road at the wrong time. About to come face to face with a living nightmare.
Welcome to my world.
The silence is over.
He's dead now.
Madness has returned. 4 stars, terrifying and brilliant. This is the best horror film of the 90s.
Family values have gone straight to hell.
genuinely scary and sharply self-satirical, Leatherface has a lot in common with the gender-bending killer in The Silence of the Lambs.
I want these people to know the meaning of horror.
You weren't scared? Have a look behind you.
It's been a long night, boys. I could use a little action.
The return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
So as you see there, that's Renee Zellweger once again, and Matthew McConaughey in one of their earliest film roles. And I'll give it this. It was certainly a lot better than Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. I mean, it wasn't trying to rip off Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street to try to turn Leatherface into a killer on those levels, because that movie was notoriously known for ripping off so many things. This movie has a lot of interesting things about it. I mean, there's 2 different release dates for this particular film. The one that came out on this weekend was the original 94-minute cut of the film. There was actually a 102-minute cut when it premiered at South by Southwest that March, and then they re-released it again in 97 with an 87-minute cut. So they basically cut 15 minutes out of this movie within 2 years in 2 different cuts, and it's weird. I don't really recall ever seeing a movie that has so many releases and they eventually cut 2 different versions in over the course of several years. But like I said, at least it's better than the last Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, and you can tell that they're trying to go for a little bit of a satirical edge to it this time around. I don't think it's quite all the way through there, but give it effort for at least trying to do something a little bit different. I don't really know too much about these Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies enough to really decide if it's right in the same level as the original films, which I sincerely doubt it, but I had a little bit of fun with it. I had a little bit of fun with it watching Renee Zellweger, and especially Matthew McConaughey having the time of their life. Really, that's all I got for you on that one. So, that's Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. With that said, that wraps up another edition of Time About the Movies. Next week, we have 8 movies to look at, including another horror sequel, Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers, Denzel Washington and Jennifer Beals in Devil in a Blue Dress, the Disney soccer comedy The Big Green, Steal Big, Steal Little, Moonlight and Valentino, Nicole Kidman and To Die For, Jane Austen's Persuasion, and War of the Buttons. So, 8 movies to look at overall, so we'll have another packed episode next time around. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I will see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you for watching, I'll see you next time, and until then, as always, take care.